time the EU has been behind us saying that we don't have a corporate tax, and therefore it still makes us attractive, to come to the Bahamas and open up one of these IBCs. And these people don't even do business anywhere near the Bahamas, so that would make it illegal. And so SASRA is the Commercial Entities Substance Requirement Act that came out in 2018, and a part of the due diligence is making sure that those persons, like I say, are belongers, like they didn't just go get the residency or the IBC just to evade taxes. And so it's another deterrent to evading taxes in your country. Okay, and so, like I said, the US had spent $18 billion and they had collected so much money. And so piece by piece, they are trying to eliminate any type of company or any loophole, so they say, in order for them to, that would prevent them from collecting their taxes. So that's another one. And we did get blacklisted by the EU because when we did update in 2018 in the law, in the penal code, we put that if you evaded customs duty and VAT, you would be prosecuted. And so we had to expand the wording, which we did in 2020, to include in any international tax. Like if you came here to evade taxes from the US or whatever, too, you would be prosecuted. And so that was a loophole, and we fixed that. But they're still behind us because they're saying that we don't have a corporate tax structure in place. And so, the companies still are getting away with evading taxes in their countries. And so we brought on SASRA, which was supposed to satisfy that. But they're still not satisfied. And we do have a business license tax, but it's for, companies that make $100,000 or more. And so then you pay a percentage of whatever your business would have made that year. So I've always been confused as to what else do they want us to put in place in order to, satisfy them. And so I was always supposed to look at their tax structure and see what all their businesses pay and see exactly what it is they want from us. But like I said, I was always confused about it because at a certain amount, if your company makes a certain amount of money, you do pay business license fees and a percentage of your revenue. So I've been confused about that for a very long time.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
another thing. Sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Another thing. I didn't understand this terminology that was used in the article when they were saying in reference to offshore institutions about ring fencing. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yeah. So again, that same ring fencing means, you would have come into the country, open up a IBC because you was doing some type of business in the Bahamas, like the Atlantis. Of course, they have a physical presence here. And so what they're saying is ring fencing is if Atlantis says, we are in the hotel industry, Atlantis should not be giving out loans. You have to make sure that whatever Atlantis IBC was approved for, and they're getting these waivers are in line with, with the business that they actually doing, right? And so let me just Google ring fencing to make sure. Again, it's just to ensure that your business is in line with the waivers that you're getting. Because like the Chinese get a lot of waivers and reduction, and so does the port. But is it in line with their original? It's just like when you open an account and your profile. This ring fencing occurs when a portion of a company's assets or profits are financially separated without necessarily being operated as a separate entity. Right. So let's look at an example. This may be done to reserve money for a specific purpose to reduce taxes. Again, all of it is related to taxes. on an individual or company, or to protect the assets from losses incurred by a riskier operation. So you would see that if Atlantis, I think they say they're going to invest with Pharrell now to open up, or Pharrell would have bought the, what tower that is, that closing down, the beach towers, right? And now he is going to renovate that and you know, run that now or manage that. Because of course, I think Atlantis is now being run by a management company called the Brookfield. So the Brookfield, Atlantis is a big group. They have the Reef, they have the Coles, they have Ocean Club, or no, Marriott, I think owns Ocean Club now. And so they would not want any negative media or any effect of Pharrell not pulling through or something going around to affect the rest of their businesses. So of course they open up another company under a name to protect, you know, if Pharrell has to sue or any litigation goes on, they would sue under that company's name rather than under the entire Atlantis brand being affected by it. Is that clear?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so yeah, you know, people even with major companies, like our signatories, we were the Royal Bank of Canada, but our signal, we had two underlying companies that we used for our signatures and had our indemnity insurance under. So when we signed, we didn't sign as the Royal Bank of Canada. I don't want to give you the signing name. So we signed as Tomato and Plantain, you know, that group. It was something similar. It was two names of fruits, but we signed under that group on behalf of, but that was just signing, you know, and it's another line of protection. If you know, back then you weren't really required to know your customer, it wasn't being enforced. Right. So it's another level of protection. When we were sued, they sued Tomato and Plantain, not the Royal Bank, even though the Royal Bank owned those companies.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so another layer of protection, but again, they don't want you to evade taxes, and they feel like we do have a lot of IBCs and a lot of people. It makes it attractive because it's cheaper to come here, like I said, and pay those fees, establish your company. But they're saying, if this person is doing business out of China, why do they have an IBC in Cayman or in Bahamas or in BVI?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Good. Good. Okay. So yeah, I have to read again. With that, like I said, until I understand the tax structure for the UK, then I will, or for the EU, then I don't understand what else they want us to put in place. I guess they want us just to carbon copy and cover all the loopholes, you know, to protect the EU from not getting their taxes. But like I said, even after we do all that, let's just say we carbon copy their structure, there's still going to be some loophole, because remember now, I always say, who should be in jail? The regulators, right? Because right. Who really has all this money? They do. And so, of course, these rules or these laws are for the masses. And then they have a loopholes or some type of workaround to protect them. You know what I mean? And so not everybody knows and not everybody reads. And so therefore, you know, the awareness sticks with a certain group. This is how we save the money or not, you know, avoid the tax. So, yeah.
Okay.
That's just my take on it. Yeah. Okay. Very, very good. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else wants to add to that? Anybody else read that article? Or was anybody else have questions in regards to that? Okay, and so if you don't know what CESRA is, please read up on it. There's another tax as well called CBC, and like Ms. Bullis have to Google these things to remember. But if you're reporting CRS and FACA and you're part of a larger group, CBC it was something new that came out again in 2020. Another thing, let me just tell you what it is. So you would need to know, along with CRS, FACA, understand CESRA, and then CBC. And so CBC is a parent entity or a member of a group that makes, like, if your annual return for like, okay, let's use Royal Bank of Canada. Royal Bank locally is a part of Royal Bank Canada, and so they say if you are under the Royal Bank group, and overall the Royal Bank group makes 800 million or more in revenue, they want you to report it. So they call it like a country by country reporting, because they found like a loophole where Royal Bank would not be reported because it's licensed by the Central Bank of the Bahamas, and they feel that these multi-million-dollar companies, as well as anybody registered on the stock exchange, the probability of them evading taxes are very, very low. But what they realized, I guess, when they was looking at the tax structures, they saw that when they reported under all these subsidiaries, and they went like in a blanketed, when they rolled up all of the revenue, and somehow they could have evaded paying a tax. So now they have a country by country reporting, because if Canada would have received that tax, but let's say you had a branch in the US and you had a branch in Bahamas, we don't have that corporate tax. However, the US has it, and so it became a conflict, and so they want you to report by each country, each jurisdiction. Okay, so read up on, like I say, CRS and FACA, CESRA, and country by country reporting. And you don't have to read in depth, but if these things are talked about, or mentioned, you should be able to speak to it knowledgeably. You won't fully understand it unless you do it as a function, but in conversation, you should be able to, speak to it knowledgeably. Okay? You all there?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
okay.
yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay, so thank you very much, Anita. Anybody else wants to share?
Hi, Ms. Bullard.
Hi. Oh, sorry. After that person.
So this week I saw in the newspaper that they had something in reference to our property tax being in arrears, 800 million. And the government's plan to use whatever they collect to pay off the government, the debt, the national debt. The Prime Minister would have indicated that we haven't been receiving funds for real property tax. So now the real property tax is in arrears, 800 million. He wants to use it to pay off the national debt when collected. They said right now, the debt is 10.5 million, and the government is only collecting 60% of the 280 million in real property tax billing so far.
Okay, so governments, you could blame the F&M and the PLP. They just never collected it. They just never collected it, and they used it as like a give back to the people. Okay, and so when Perry Christie was Prime Minister, I think a very prominent figure, he used to be the CEO of KPMG. He asked that you waive his own was 300,000 in arrears. And so they've never been very serious. If you go waive somebody who used to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 accounting firm, what about the little people? You know what I mean? And then the real estate people got involved and said, y'all are gravely undercharging these persons. And I can look at my real property tax, and compared to the value of my house, it was very low. But again, all of that was in benefit of the people. So now I think they've hired appraisers now to give the actual real property tax that it should be. So now you see that there's a great increase. Now, I'd like to see them collected. You know, they have had initiatives in place. I have 1 or 2 contacts down to the Ministry of Finance where they say the expats, you know, because they're so used to paying taxes in their country, they have actually sent checks into the Ministry of Finance, and the Ministry of Finance returned it saying that we don't have nobody to collect this or nowhere to apply this. This is what I heard, you know, it could be from the streets, you know, and so therefore I would really like to see them.
Ms. Bullard?
Yes.
In reference to collecting that, they have also engaged the Clearing Bank Association.
I saw that.
So now they have departments in each of the banks. Once you have a mortgage over the property, they say now the bank should have had some kind of responsibility to ensure that it's being paid because you hold a mortgage over that property. So now they have engaged the clearing banks to assist with collection.
I see all of that in the newspaper, but I'd be very surprised still if it happens under PLP government. You know?
Yeah, I'm curious to find out how, because like some houses, some people have never paid it at all.
Right.
They are like 20 years into their mortgage. So the amount that they may owe may exceed what their mortgage payments are. And so at this point, you can't tell me you're going to rewrite my mortgage to include a payment to pay government.
Right.
Whereas my mortgage payment is say $1,000, and you're going to raise my mortgage payment to $1,200 just to include this fee that's for the government.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's gonna open up a can of worms.
That too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then we could say that the government was negligent in enforcing. So
yeah,
that's just
so that is something. Now maybe that is something that they can include in new mortgages.
Yes, right. Or like they say, they collect when you sell. If you sell the property and you get in a lump sum, you don't go feel when they take out $10,000. You know.
Yeah, but then in order for people to, well, say if somebody is deciding to sell that property, and it has. Say if you're selling a property that's $200,000 and the real property is $50,000. So you have to sell it for $250,000, but it's not worth $250,000. So
yeah, but you just have to, you only getting $150. That's all. You have
right. So that's what I'm saying. So now that presents a whole other challenge for
no, but that's what happening now, Dominique. That's what they do now. Now, once you sell, you can't get that conveyance till you sell. I mean, you have to pay that tax if you sell. You have to pay that tax if you sell. So that's their way of collecting. Other than that, they don't collect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Indira, go ahead.
That's what has been happening. Let me tell you what's been happening. Because they weren't assessing the properties, they're supposed to be assessing these properties every 5 years. They dropped the ball, so that's why the people, especially in the East, are gonna see an increase in their taxes because they weren't being properly assessed and they weren't assessing like every 5 years like they supposed to. So that's why you will see a big jump in your property taxes now versus back in the day.
But the thing about it is, are they going to enforce payment?
Now, Ms. Bullet, to collect that money right now, like, isn't that illegal for them to do that?
Well, it ain't illegal. It is, but
a mortgage a mortgage that you already have. If I don't know I'm supposed to pay property tax, how in the world you gonna tell me that?
You know you're supposed to pay. How if you have a mortgage, you know.
Some people don't know that, Ms. Bullet. Some people don't know they have to pay property tax.
But okay, now you can't go on. I don't know I'm supposed to pay. You know, you can't use that one.
People saying they don't know. I'm telling you.
I have a question.
Ms. Bullard. I have a comment. Oh, sorry, I didn't see someone else was talking.
Go ahead.
I have a comment on in regards to, sorry, good afternoon, everyone. I have a comment in regards to that everybody that buys property knows back then, if your property is valued over more than $250,000, you have to pay taxes.
Yeah.
Reality is we give, the governments have been giving the citizens and expats, everybody in the Bahamas some leeway.
Yeah.
Now, the only thing that I can say that they can do, you cannot charge somebody babe from 20 years ago and expect them to come up with this money. That's the
No,
reality of it.
it's not fair.
My view of it is they're gonna have to at some point say, well, we're gonna have to call, if you 20 years into a mortgage, that means you either halfway there or almost there.
Almost finished.
They're gonna have to say, well, we're gonna have to call this a loss and probably going forward.
Yeah.
Charge you some fees, but you cannot, for even though yes, it was my duty on my behalf. However, you as the government were not enforcing it. It was not, like you say, it was not
negligence.
no, it was not mandatory. Y'all didn't come looking for me. Reality is, yes, I may have owed this money, but now what are we gonna do moving forward? So I'm guessing that they're gonna have some sort of section inland revenue, to my understanding, like Ms. Bullard is say, I can't quote and say whatever. However, I understand that they're going to be working, have a section to work solely on this. And I guess each individual with that is going to be paying property taxes going forward, each situation is going to be unique. Whereas I may be 5 years in and they say, well, I gotta let her pay this going back. But for somebody 20 years in, they may decide, you know what, we can just give her a break and let's go moving forward.
Yeah, but see, all their buddies, their bosom buddies and stuff who live out in them big mansions out west who probably owe $100,000, they ain't gonna pay. So I'd like to see the PLP software they can collect this. They'll get vote right out.
But you know the PLP.
They'll get vote right out. So the PLP,
I don't see it happening under their watch.
I don't see it happening under the PLP.
I see them allowing certain people to pay, not everybody. Which in which in actuality is not going to be fair, and then people are going to make noise about it. So I like you, Miss Bullard. I'm going to sit back and relax. But then I know they come in looking for me. The people who just trying to be new house owners, they come in looking for us to pay.
Yeah. I like I say, I really, the PLP, they ain't gonna, spoil their image. They do buddy and too friendly to do something like this. I'd be very surprised. It means that some things really change. So let's wait and see what happens. But too many big boys, and you never pay either. All them Ocean Club people and they ain't paying that. So they can say, they already have initiatives in place where they say, if you come in and pay, they give you 50% off and they do this and that. So let's see, they must give you 80% off or something like that to get people to pay. I don't know. I don't see it from the PLP, but we'll see what happens, because I don't know if I tell you the story. I have a friend and he loved the F&M so much. His last name is Ingram. And when his son was born, Hubert Ingram was prime minister, and he loved the F&M so much, he named his son Hubert, just so his son could be Hubert Ingram, right? And so the boy, that was from 1990. So the boy, what is this, 20s or something now. And the other day I was speaking with him and I said, we was talking about the election and stuff. And he was like, Bullard, I love the F&M so much, I named my child after the prime minister. However, under the F&M, if my light bill went over $250, it was disconnected because the F&M collected the taxes. My light bill right now is $1,200 and I'm going strong and I ain't even worrying about it. Okay, because I know the PLP ain't gonna turn me off. So he said, I think I switch into the PLP. So I said, you don't see the long-term effect of that if everybody had the mindset that you have. I said, how you think BPL could manage? He said, well, I ain't got it. And I know the PLP ain't gonna turn me off. Okay, so that's the premise. When the PLP comes to try to collect this, they better be prepared to lose some votes, because these people, they mean that. They don't know about a long-term effect, and if what happen today, go affect you later on. They only know about now, right?
I believe they're gonna bring an independent something in and say that they have no control over it.
The PLP?
I see them because it's the only way you can explain all this loose money they're gonna go be throwing around. Something have to be worth, because if they didn't plan on taking out no loans, and the only way they could have this money and cut off these tariffs and do all of these things that they say they're gonna go do, the money have to be coming from somewhere.
Well, talk to somebody who ran on the PLP ticket in my next class. And I asked we was having the same discussion, like, where are these big promises coming from?
Exactly.
I said, look what happened to VAT. Look what happened with VAT. Did they not promise many times VAT would be waived for 1 year? And everybody said that's ludicrous because internationally it couldn't happen. Now look what they do. Okay, so it'll be another twisted promise where the poor people suffer some more.
It had to be
look at the bread basket items.
Where the money was to come from, Ms. Bullet. If they didn't put on the bread basket items, the money had to either they would have to raise it. The same thing when they say they weren't going to raise NIB, but it's going to happen.
Okay, so they only political promises, and if you can't see that they say these things, and if you don't fact check it, the decision would they make actually hurt you more than it benefits you.
I foresee them not raising VAT in this 5 years, but
I don't think they have a choice.
I think in the next term or closer to the next term, they're going to do it.
Yeah, they don't. I don't think they have a choice.
They don't have a choice.
They don't have a
Don't have a choice.
Yeah,
it's going to go back up, and then everybody could be mad. But reality is, with all this spending they doing. Yeah,
and then just how we have to say, minutes got to go. Brave got to go too, because every time I turn on social media, they in the Qatar, in Dubai, in this place, in that place, all we on Exuma. I thought only
the travel budget
PM ain't get island right now, probably.
You see the travel budget this last?
And the budget was 10 million for this year for travel.
Get raised more. Get raised. That does not even include the concessions that come along with the little travel. It's, when they travel, it just be 50 of them strong.
Okay. So everybody catch Fred little bug, and I talk about they traveling like never before on the people's purse and making all these unfulfilled promises. But anyway, that's another story for another day. You all check these things before you vote. Okay, these are the things that matter. Okay, because they say a lot of stuff and it never comes to fruition. Okay, the other day they said that some major construction was supposed to take place, but because of the price of gas, they wasn't able to do it. And that's when, I don't know, it was this past people saying we are outraged. How did they not buy futures? They knew that gas was going to raise. Did anybody see that gas is $7.39 a diesel?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Listen to me.
Yes,
so here I am pulling up to the gas station last night to put gas in my car and having to pull straight off. I took a picture of that and I sent that to my family group. I say, well, guys, I need a bicycle. $7.39.
Well, I never used to use that, so they ain't got to worry.
I drive
my gas station, man.
Yeah, y'all, if y'all see Miss Bullet walking, give Miss Bullet a ride. I need to exercise, but I could be walking and I could be bicycling it out. Okay? Because $7.39.
Yeah, that's off the wall.
So, this whole holiday weekend.
And I see it going up again.
Yeah, but this whole holiday weekend, Miss Bullet walking. So
well, you are gassing for $10.
I could imagine. So I don't know. I can't. It's crazy.
So all I mean is Cat Island clean up this weekend with all them people over there. Because people gotta buy the gas.
If they smart, they carry the car full of gas and put their reserve inside the back trunk if they smart.
Yep. Anyway, Miss Bullock could be walking. I needed to exercise, and I pray for encouragement. I pulled straight off that pump last night and parked my car. So anyway, I need to go is by foot.
I need to check Texaco today because I know yesterday when I put gas, it was still $6.13.
Yeah, but Texaco is still $6.13, but Esso is $7.39. So yeah.
Yeah.
You can't go there.
I think I gotta go put. Well, they ain't far from going up.
Right. So you better full up on that $6.13 while it's there. Yeah. Yeah. Oh Lord, pray, help the sinners, Lord, help the sinners. That's where I am. That's where I am. Okay, guys. So very good. Anybody else, or we can move on to the chapter now?
I could share. I know we supposed to do business stuff, but y'all know my field, so y'all know what we were focusing on this week. You know, the little depression that, well, it was only supposed to be just a little bit of rain, and now I check in my emails, and then you see that a lot of the Freeport airport is now closed because they can't have anybody, any of the flights planned. A lot of people querying as to why it closed, but if you've ever been on the runway or close to the runway, when a plane is trying to land in a windy situation, you would know that it's not fun. And then in actuality, the plane could actually tilt. So to play it safe, that was the best thing to do. So we make sure we don't jeopardize anybody's life. But I did read the business section. Actually, I do read the paper almost every day. And I read about the taxes. Like I say, I was trying to figure out where all this money coming from and these things that they're overlooking in the tariffs. Mind you, I'm not going to complain because that means, you know, us as a small man, a lot of things that we were paying an arm and a leg for, we could get much cheaper. Now I saw that. I don't know if y'all saw it.
Flavia, you see, Supervisor, you ain't going down.
Hold on, you ain't give me chance, Miss Bullett. Just going to say that.
You say we could get these things much cheaper. I would know where.
I gonna say Solomon's is the only one that and Cartwright, you know, they're the same thing. AML.
No. They announce it.
They announce it. But I'm waiting on Rupert. I gonna say I am waiting to see if Rupert Bobbitt actually passes those things on to the customer.
But Clavia, really, when you go in Solomon's and what's the next one? Cost, right? They was already too high. They was already higher than.
Yeah, they were always higher than the average,
so
but then super value.
They putting out that announcement, really? I have to see it.
But then, Miss Bullock, sometimes if you a person who, like me, I like to buy in bulk, right? So I go to Solomon's a lot, or I do the Sam's thing. And sometimes I could tell you with buying stuff from Sam's and shipping it here, it's almost neck and neck. Sometimes it's like, I don't even think I saving money.
No, you ain't. It's just that they have a better variety.
Right. Sometimes
you what you're looking for. Yeah.
You would see the little, before time, you would see the little dollar or couple dollars that you're saving. But now, when you don't see it, it almost doesn't make sense. So I've really been shopping local a lot. And sometimes when I go to compare to Super Value versus Cartwright, you do kind of do a little savings because you buy in bigger and you buy in bulk.
But Clavia, I have to shop the Bahamas Food Service. Okay, and that's where I see, because a lot of them just buy from Bahamas Food Service and then just sell, add their little price on. I see the Chinese just do that too. So,
but I know we do in our family. If we buy, like when cream and everything went up, we did let's buy the case of cream and let's
share it, yeah,
and buy the tuna and let's share it, because it's ridiculous to pay almost $2 for one can of cream.
Yeah. Well, I have to do that because I have a lot of kids, so I had to do that.
I say that the tariffs, I know what they're gonna do, Miss Bullet. There's a lot of money, and I don't see us sustaining with all this.
Yeah, but Clavia, at least we are part of the working crew. I wondering with the people who, in social service doing and how they making it.
And they only giving them $80. $80.
If we feel in a strain, I really concerned about the very poor people, the people who making $210 a week. How they managing?
And then I'm still waiting to see. I know they say they trying to wait. That was another thing I read. I don't know if that was this week or last week. Like I say, I read a lot. They plan to raise minimum wage, but here's my concern with that. I know everybody happy about it, but the small businesses are gonna say, well, we have to let this amount. So you're gonna raise unemployment in some sector.
The small businesses. The last time
are gonna let people go.
Atlantis and Bahamas said they had to let 200 people go when they raised minimum wage to $210. Atlantis let 200 people go. So in the small businesses, it's the big boys who don't agree with it and they let go.
And I know a few companies, I know a few persons that said that, if they go over the 210 mark, whereas like they have their staff at maybe 225, 250. So if they plan on raising minimum wage about 250, some of those little corner stores and the things that people frequent because they don't want to go to the big stores, they're gonna let staff go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's sad. It's like I say, I don't know how you're supposed to make it or what the answers are, but um, everything, the cost of living is so high, and when you look at the world cost of living, um, I think we are number three. Switzerland or one of those European countries was number one, but the minimum wage in Switzerland is $61,000 per year, which adds up to almost $20 an hour or something like that.
$61,000.
It's $60,000 or $61,000 is the minimum wage. Divide that by 52 and then by 40, and you'll see what it is per hour. But because the cost of living is so high in Switzerland, I mean, they match it. Minimum wage is $60,000. But here, the cost of living being like number three, if you look at the world charts. And our minimum wage is what? That's 11,000 or 15,000. How much 210 is a year? Anybody have a calculator?
I on it. 210 times 52.
That's
10,920.
Okay. Okay. $10,000.
But you know, you can't get the average person. Like we try to do like the guys who just come out of school or part-time workers, they won't even work for the 210. I can tell you that.
Yeah, but and this is where I support communism, because like in countries like Greece and China and Cuba, when you come out of school, you go to the army, sitting on the blocks, you go to the army and you get an education, but me and my son was just talking about when they had that combined graduation with all the government schools. There was 5,000 students that graduated, 100 high school diplomas. That means 4,900 persons just attended. And where they going? To sit on the blocks. Because I sure they ain't going to UB or the BTBI if they ain't pay attention in school. Okay, so you have a bunch of uneducated persons making uneducated decisions who don't have money and don't necessarily know how to live without, right? And then we wonder why we have somebody die every day. That's the pandemic we ain't paying attention to. Okay, if we read in the Bible, that was a plague where you had to put Moses in the river Nile to protect your sons. Okay, and because I can tell you that 4,900, the majority of them probably was boys. But nobody paying attention to that. Right, that was a plague. And every day in the Bahamas, a black man dies. Every day. Murder is the order of the day. Okay, it's a plague. So we really need to, they always say in the defense force deficient, we don't have sufficient police or whatever. Make these people go to the army. Make them get educated. At least they'll make better decisions. Rather than think I must kill or steal or, to provide for myself.
True, got us worrying, but if they come in to carry a bump in the night.
Okay. Okay, they feel like they don't have no choice. If I gotta eat and feed my children in the morning. And we had a guy out of Freeport where he did go to rob this lady who was a pastor because he saw her just come out of church. And when he realized, he pulled the gun on her, and then when he realized that one time he was hungry and him and his wife had absolutely nothing, and he was robbing to feed his family, she had fed him. And he put the gun down and he says, sorry, mom, I can't rob you because you feed me before, and and so she said she took him inside and she got a box and she gave him clothes, she gave him food and everything, and say, please go and feed your family. And then she said, I'll come back, I can try help you get a job. But only because she had done that for him before. She could have lost her life. So we have to start to find solutions. We can't keep letting the masses come out of school uneducated with no trade. What else can they do?
But I mean, you could force, and I mean, everybody here probably could agree with it too, Miss Willard. You could send them to school. You could try to get them to learn, but if they don't want to learn, you know, they ain't gonna learn no matter what you're doing.
Yeah, Clavia, you know who I blame?
The way how the life is set up, or how they're living, that help them in this like they have a low or a slave mentality there, basically.
Yeah,
Right.
but
Basically like slave.
where do they get it from? I blame the parents, and that's where the training needs to start. The training needs to start with the parents, because you have persons that growing up very poor, and they know that they have to go and find a job, okay, or we will not eat. They'll go ask 10 people before they thief or kill or rob. I blame the parents 100%.
But I mean, you have parents in
It
some
ain't the children.
cases, you have good parents, you know, and the child company is a serious thing. And then the need to wanna to fit in. That's another thing, because
I
like
agree. There are a lot of evils out there, but the apple don't fall too far from the tree. When you see these people out there talk about they stealing and going to jail, check their parents' past. I sorry.
Yeah.
These
We have a
generations
system in place that allows, say if something happened while I was in school and I didn't get to finish my, you know, like where you could do your GED long after.
I don't know. I know there's a pregnancy school, and then there's a school for the boys, but that's everybody who's been in trouble. But not necessarily they need a school where you don't necessarily been in trouble. You just didn't
finish, or you didn't. Yeah, because in high school, so a lot of children aren't as focused. But then when they get into the real world, they realize, okay, I need to get these. You cannot go ahead and do your BGCSEs again if you don't even. You know, like you need
Atlantic College has a college prep program, but again, you have to have money for that. That's $400 or $500 a class to be able to take that.
You could do your BGCSEs though.
Yeah, but
you have to pay for the class. You have to actually sign up to do the classes to get to that level to say they qualify you to do it, but you have to pay for the classes, like Ms. Willis say. So it's nothing free. The American system has that freeness. They don't have that.
BTVI perhaps needs to look into that college prep. I think it's only $25, but I don't know if they do BGCSE. I know they have college prep though. Yeah, but there are a lot of things, and that's why I'm saying we are here, you know, to learn to get to the next steps in our career. But a lot of, you know, our country needs us, and we have the same people in position for years, and then they raising their children to carry on their nonsense. Please, let's raise up some ethical people who truly want to help and who truly want to make you know, a difference. I mean, and you could, like I said, you could start with your church, or you could start within your civic organization, or you could, you know, start right in your community. A lot of y'all have homeowners associations, or, you know, and so, you know, we need to donate our time and our efforts to help in our community, because we might be saving ourselves. Okay, because obviously the government has turned a blind eye, you know, for years. The same system, nothing changed in the last 25 years. The world has changed, and you know, the schools are overcrowded, and students are, they say no child left behind. Children are being left behind, left, right, and center. Okay, so it takes a village. So it's up to us in our communities to, you know, try to get involved and make a difference. And I always say, you know, Miss Bullen, me as a person, I could do better, because we could sit down and talk for hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. That's why I hate meetings. We sit down and talk for hours and we do nothing. We talk. We sound good. We know what to do, but we just never get around to doing it. So let's get to the point where we actually put some of these things into action and we make a difference. Okay, guys.
Okay.
Y'all there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, right. Very good discussion. So we now all have the awareness. Let's do something about it in each of our communities. Let's look at what our politicians doing in their little office. Let's make sure that they ain't just having a barbecue on Saturday, but they having a reading library or this GED program that is so needed, or ensuring that, you know, there's documentation of everybody in this community. What are your plans? Are you on the way to graduating? No? Okay, let's give you a trade. But let's not let you just leave the school system, no knowledge and no trade, no next step, no plan. Okay? Okay, guys, very, very good discussion. I really hope it, even if just one of you gets out, and even if Ms. Bullock gets out and does it, you know, it will make a difference. So I guess start walking the walk and not just talking to and see where I could, you know, make a difference and make some things happen. Okay, you lead by example. Okay, so very good discussion, ladies. Thank you all for sharing. Okay, so did anybody read what chapter are we on now? 3? And like I said, don't take it for granted that this is 10 weeks. These 10 weeks go very fast, and then we all you know, fighting for points. So let's prepare ourselves so we can sit comfortably in the exam, because all of you would have done intro, and so y'all see how at 30% just makes it a whole lot easier. Okay. I think the first homework is gonna be due soon. So I encourage all, like I said, more than likely that's gonna be the mandatory question on the exam. So I encourage all to try and get that first homework in, or if you don't want to submit it for a grade, do it for practice, just so you would have the bulk of your points down pack. And again, you'd need 20 points on the exam if that's the mandatory question. Okay, so just be cognizant of the dates. Any questions?
Right, Miss Bullock, because I have an anxiety right now.
Pray it away, pray it away. No need that anxiety. We're still in good standing. We have enough time. And like I said, calls for a bit of organizing. Get some help at home with the kids or the pickups.
I was trying to do the essay. You're not a devil fight me to try to do this question, but yeah, if you know, I would even go the kind of day I had yesterday. I've been in there. Okay, well, it's a long weekend. Get some rest first. Get some rest first and feel good. Treat I
yourself.
have to do something now because this upsets me now.
Yeah, after you feel good and treat yourself, then you pick it up and it should flow.
Yeah, I think that's what I need, because trust me.
Yeah, because I feel a little overwhelmed now.
No, take a little break. When you feel that way, just take a little break. Do whatever makes you feel good. I like the beach, so I drive around stressed out until I just slam on brakes one day and I jump in the water and all my stress goes away. So whatever it is a glass of wine, take a day away to the Atlantis and go under the waterfall, or have a nice dinner, whatever it is, or cook yourself a nice dinner. Or if it's a movie, do it. Feel good first, rejuvenate yourself, relax, and then
I gotta do something.
Pick it up.
Just getting to me.
Yeah, don't go from stress to stress to stress. That don't work. You need an outlet. Okay, you need an outlet. So whilst you still have time, get this out the way, and then so when we get to the exam, you can just focus on your other 4 questions, because you would have already gotten your grade, know where you stand, know what else you need, for your mandatory question. So organize yourself. Okay.
I have a question before we start, Ms. Bullard.
Go ahead.
Just because we're talking about the these 4 questions and everything. So when it comes down to writing an essay, once we pick one of these questions and submit it, we're basically saying that we need to get to know the other topics, because these could possibly be questions on the exam.
Correct. All of the classwork and the homework is past exam questions.
Right.
All of it. So just make sure you practice the classwork or you read through them and ensure that you understand what the question is asking.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you practice, by the time you get the exam, it'll be familiar to you, and you would have done like sufficient research And once you read the question properly, just apply your research to what the question is asking and you should be fine. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great. Okay, guys, so a lot has been going on with chapter 3. We should know all about terrorist financing. We should know all about charities and how terrorists use charities. We should know all about Russia and Ukraine. And the latest topic now, and persons were predicting this before the war with Russia and Ukraine, they said if Russia successfully invaded Ukraine, then China would think that they could invade Taiwan. Has anybody heard now the talks coming out between China and Taiwan? Have we been listening to those in the news?
Nope.
No, I haven't heard this.
I can be honest.
Okay, so just so you would know, Ukraine is the largest producer of corn in the world. And so essentially Russia, Ukraine used to be a part of the United Soviet Union years ago. And of course, Russia could not afford to develop Ukraine. And so they broke them off and they made them independent, right? And so if it's just like the Queen made us independent. They made Cayman independent. Now they still have Turks and Caicos, but imagine the Queen coming back and say, "Ooh, the Bahamas is now full of lots of natural resources. They have that aragonite. They have the sun, and sea. I want to now take over the Bahamas again, take back their independence and take over the Bahamas." So that means Brave Davis will have to now go to war with, try and fight the Queen, right? And so the UK compared to us is a very large nation. So, we don't know what will happen to us if she made that decision. Luckily, she don't have those communist type of, ideology that Putin has. So essentially, that's what's happening with Putin and Ukraine. Now that some 20 years later, Ukraine is developed, doing very well economically. Putin has decided that I want to take them over. So even though Ukraine was made independent, Putin had one of his buddies, like Perry Christie and Rafe Davis. He sent Perry Christie over there to be the president of Ukraine. And so Russia was benefiting from all of the, economic stability of Ukraine. However, after the people saw that, so much of the money was going to Russia, they voted Perry Christie out and they have this new guy in now. So before, back in the day, even though Ukraine was independent, they used to have a lot of sanctions against Ukraine because of Putin's best friend being in charge. However, now the people voted them out. They have a new, like I say, a president that cut ties with Putin and say, no, you're not deserving of half of our money and all of our fields of corn and what have you. Therefore, Putin decided, well, you can't tell me what to do. We gonna just acquire your land and take it over. Okay, and so that's what's happening with Ukraine and Russia. Now, China and Taiwan is the largest producer of semiconductors around the world. And semiconductors are used in all of this new technology that's happening, all these developments. You need it for cryptocurrency, you need it for debit cards, you need it for anything for the World Wide Web. So now, China is deciding that we made Taiwan independent years ago. So now they're making all this money. Now we want to acquire them because truly this money belongs to China. Even though, like I said, years ago, they broke up, couldn't afford all these various countries and wanted to focus, I guess, just on the capital. And so what happened with Ukraine, because they were sanctioned and they are just getting on their feet economically after the very corrupt leader, they did not join NATO. The United Nations forum that each country protects. I think there are 13 NATO countries, and the rule is an attack on one NATO country is an attack on all NATO countries, right? And so therefore, this is why the US has sent aid to Ukraine, but they have not started World War III. However, if Taiwan is invaded by China, then World War III will start because Taiwan is a NATO country, okay? And so that's why we see all these sanctions coming out against Russia, okay? And it's again to curb some of the behavior of Putin and I guess again of China. So nothing has come out yet because it's only a threat, it's only in the talking phase. However, you know, the US has already spoken, Biden has already come up and said, if China even thinks that they are going to base their decision on what is now happening in Russia and Ukraine, it is going to be World War III. Okay, and of course, who does that affect? The people, right? And that's why sanctions are put out there to ensure, you know, just to really change the behavior of these countries or these communist people who believe that they can just go and invade a country and take over. Okay, so just before we go into sanctions and the different types and the categories, I'm going to backtrack. And you know, the book starts off talking about terrorist financing, and of course we know our laws were updated to make sure that if terrorists do indeed come to the Bahamas, they can be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We know that their objectives are recruitment, to purchase weapons, to have a safe haven. We know that they go through legitimate and illegitimate sources. They tax persons, they use charities, they extort, they do various things to gain their money. Because of the charities being heavily involved in the Middle East, one of our laws that was deficient, I guess, was recommendation 5, 6, and 7, and then recommendation 8, where nonprofit organizations would have been used. And I always use the example of, let's just think about, you know, each year when we do our charity, sometimes we donate to the Ranfurly Home or the Children's Emergency Hostel. And so let's just suppose instead of feeding those children, they send that money on to ISIS or what have you. And then we saw the Bishop Lawrence rule every day during the pandemic, feeding the people. Just imagine a terrorist, and I think I would have said this to this class already. Imagine a terrorist approaching Bishop Lawrence rule and stating that I'm going to give you $100,000, $50,000 for the people, 50,000 you should send somewhere else. Do you think he is sufficiently educated in regards to AML, or he would just think that this was a blessing from the Lord?
He would think that's just a blessing from the Lord.
Okay. Okay, so now we understand. We understand the importance of ensuring.
Money coming.
Oh, there you go. There you go. We understand the importance of, you know, regularizing the charities. And so what we found out after, I think, recommendation 8 was updated, we found out that we had 345 different charities. And what the government did is they created, let me try to share the screen. Okay, we don't want that. We don't want that. Let me see if I can share the screen to show you. Not that one, but.
Ms. Bullard, while you're trying to share your screen, I have a question.
Go ahead.
With NGOs like you said, the Prophet, would they actually give him some sort of training, or people like who would not understand terrorist financing or
But see, it's not up to them to give the training. They are registered now under the Registrar General's office through this Non-Profit Organization Act 2019. So I don't know if you remember in the papers, they were putting ads and saying, you have like 90 days to come in and regularize your accounts, meaning you have to bring in your KYC, tell us who was on your boards, tell us, you know, he didn't even have anything official established, but he now has a foundation.
Okay.
Are y'all familiar? Now one of the lawyers volunteered to help him, and they created a foundation. So now when he would have approached the bank, he would have approached the bank with his foundation charter and all the documents that are required for a foundation. And so the law requires various, you know, meetings to be held, trainings to be held, and various things. And so now that he has a board, you know, the board has to be trained as well, and all the members have to be trained in regards to anti-money laundering and terrorist financing.
Okay, that's good then.
Right. And so in the papers, you would have seen that the bank said you have, let's say, 90 days to come in and bring in the proper documents, or we have to close out your account. And the proper documents would have been, you know, back in the day, I think the bank used to just accept like bylaws and a list, like a letter from whoever was the head of the organization or from the church. But if you wanted to operate, you had to, you know, either create a foundation or some type of company in order for the bank to keep your account open. And you had to be registered with the Registrar General. And so I think they gave them in 2020, 90 days or 180 days to come in, or their accounts would have been closed. In fact, this was during the pandemic, and every Wednesday, the bishop was feeding persons. And it went so far as all of them who were even doing this and were not fully regularized and not registered with the Registrar General, they would have been charged $10,000 a day. Okay, so imagine that. Here it is, he's just doing a good deed, trying to feed the people during the pandemic, and he could be fined by the government $10,000 a day. But of course, we were being internationally watched, and so therefore we had no choice. So luckily, that lawyer came and helped him establish a foundation. And so he was able to get, because like we say, he's not educated enough to know, but if you're going to be in charge of these organizations, you have to know the risks that you are susceptible to, and you have to train yourself and your staff, or you simply cannot have this organization. And if you do have it, you will be charged $10,000 a day, okay, until you close it down. So I assume Walter Hanschel had already been established because he's a businessman. He normally does real estate, so he probably would already been established. But there were many, there were 345 organizations that had to get regularized, okay, or they had to cease taking donations. And at the brink of this, of course, we know they had to enforce it because Head Knowles was being prosecuted as well by GoFundMe because they had collected more than $1 million during Hurricane Joe walking aid and Hurricane Matthew. However, GoFundMe is for Americans or Canadians because America wants to ensure that they get their taxes. And it was found that the head person had just moved to Orlando and applied for citizenship when she established that. So technically, she was not supposed to go and start that GoFundMe, right? And so in the midst of that litigation, you know, we were receiving pressure to say, see what could happen if these are not regulated. And so they were approved and regulated. However, now they are suing each other and $1 million still sitting up there in GoFundMe. So it's a crazy situation, you know, but just for infighting too, and to make sure that the money actually is accounted for and it goes where it's supposed to go, rather than, because they are now accusing each other of corruption. And so you want to ensure that persons who would have donated, donated for the people, I think it was Long Island, that got hit the hardest during Hurricane Matthew and Joaquin. And here it is, the money is sitting up there because they are fighting. Okay, so this law would regulate them, would prosecute them, and say the requirements if they go to banks to open up these accounts. The banks are not to approve these accounts unless they can give proper documentation. Okay, so you can't say, well, I'm educated. If you want an organization, a nonprofit, you have to find somebody to sit on your board who educated enough, okay, to understand the risks associated with these type of institutions. Okay, is that clear? Any questions on nonprofits? You're still there?
Yeah,
Okay.
I good.
Okay, you're good. Okay, but did any of you see it in your banks where you'll put out the notices and say, please come and regulate your account, or we have to close it out?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. So y'all are familiar. Okay, so good. So we're moving right along. When President Bush was president, the US used to have an act called the Dodd-Frank Act. He updated, repealed, and replaced this act and created the Patriot Act. And the Patriot Act was to, assist, he came up with this weapons of mass destruction thing that never came to pass. However, he updated the Patriot Act to fight foreign official corruption, to police the operatives of multinational financial institutions, and limit the activities of offshore banking centers. Okay, and there is I think I told you all when we talked about the Wolfsburg Group, and the Wolfsburg Group is the group of the largest banks around the world that man the correspondent banking, on their application. Remember, it used to be 28 questions, now it's 200. And so one of the new questions is the Patriot Act applicable to your jurisdiction? And where this is a US law, people would question how possibly could US law be applicable to our jurisdiction. However, the US dollar has an extra territorial arm that falls under the Patriot Act. And so once your country accepts US dollar and does correspondent banking, the US has strategically used, every time a wire is sent to the US, it goes through the Fed. So with that going through the Fed, that would make you on US territory. And with your country having a US reserve, that would extend to the extraterritorial arm of the US. And so the US can come into your country, they can seize funds, even if it's a Bahamian bank. Foreign banks have interbank accounts in the US with covered financial institutions. Like we have an account with Deutsche Bank and with Chase Bank. They can freeze all of that. They can put a restraining order on the account. They could seize the money. They could send warrants for arrest to the CEO or anybody involved in the transaction. And you can be prosecuted in the United States. Okay, so once your company sends wires, that means, and they have a US bank, which most companies do, they normally have a US correspondent bank and a European correspondent bank for all of the countries that the US have sanctions against. They send through the European bank. Okay, because some of these banks are not, or some of these countries are not sanctioned by the UK, but they are sanctioned by the US. Okay, and in some cases they're sanctioned by both. Okay, and so that section 3.9 of the Patriot Act allows US courts to come into any country and seize, and they don't have to wait on extradition and what have you, because you know a lot of countries are corrupt. They don't extradite their persons, or these people say, oh, I want to be tried at home. You could want to be tried at home, but if the US feels that your sentence is too light, they can come into your country and arrest you. Okay? And we had something similar like this happen where JP Morgan, no, wasn't JP Morgan, sorry, it was Julius Baer, has recently closed down, and about 30 or 40 persons went home because they had 3 or 4 private bankers who were leaving to go to, I think it was, no, it's not Corner Bank. It's another bank out west. They were leaving to go there. And it was found that, you know, they had money laundered and taken advantage of their Venezuelan portfolio because the dollar value in Venezuela had dropped. And so they were manipulating clients' accounts. And the officer decided before he started his new job, he was going to go and travel to the US for a vacation. And right in customs, they arrested him. And he implicated 2 other banks that are here local. And he is now serving a 10-year term. Okay. And they were able, even though that happened in the Bahamas with Venezuelan accounts, because they had a US correspondent bank, the US was able to prosecute on this extraterritorial arm of the US government. Okay, the whole Julius Baer closed down and people went home. Okay, and that was just recently, I think 2019. Okay, are we familiar?
Yes, I have a friend who's worked there. Yeah,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
that did happen.
Yeah. Okay, so you have to understand that it's not only Bahamian law, but in the offshore world, it could be the Patriot Act too, because again, the purpose was that to control these offshore jurisdictions. Of course, we see all our politicians being brought before the court or being let go free. Okay. However, if the US wanted to get involved, if any wires were sent, they could possibly say, listen, send Shane Gibson, send Frank Smith, and we'll prosecute them ourselves. Okay. Then the book goes on to talk about, you know, weapons proliferation. And of course, after these weapons of mass destruction, it used to just be AML and CFT or CTF, counter the financing of terrorism, anti-money laundering. However, weapons of mass destruction was a big thing for George Bush. And so from that, this is how we added on the PF, which is proliferation financing. And proliferation financing, you know, the act of providing funds or financial services which are used in whole or in part for the manufacture and acquisition, possession, transport, transfer, stockpiling, or use of any nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons. Now, I saw something out on the internet that says the US has 2,000 of these biological or nuclear chemical weapons, and China has 20, right? And so I always laugh at this, you know, when he talks about weapons of mass destruction, I'm saying, sir, this law should be for y'all, because y'all are the ones with the largest amount of these weapons. So of course you would never know how much China have, or Iran, or you know, the Middle East, but I still think that the US has more, and I believe 100% that they right there in the water in Andes, right? Or at these various outlying islands that they own around the world. Okay, so ensure that you understand, you know, weapons proliferation and what it is. But that's where it came from this whole ideology that, you know, George Bush had over the weapons of mass destruction. Okay, and so again, very popular questions. I will the final, it asks you about section 3.19 of the Patriot Act. It asks you about the extraterritorial arm of the US dollar. It will ask you like definitions of this weapons proliferation. Okay, and then we're gonna move on to sanctions. And sanctions and embargoes are used for the following motives: to encourage a change in behavior of a target country, to apply pressure on a target country or regime as an enforcement tool when international peace and security has been threatened. And then there are targeted sanctions. There are embargoes on exporting or supplying arms and related materials. There are travel bans on named individuals. There are bans on exporting equipment. There are bans on import of raw material or goods from the sanctions target. There are financial sanctions on individuals and government bodies and associated companies. And so before Russia was fully sanctioned, an example of a ban on exporting or import of raw material, you would find that, I used to have a Russian client where I paid salaries and school fees for the Russian client. However, every time, when they wanted to order, they were building a house and they wanted to order lumber, there was a ban on exporting lumber out of Russia. And so the entire Russia wasn't banned, but just that specific industry was banned. And so you want to ensure that you read carefully what the sanction is on. Now, back in the day, sanctions didn't fluctuate. They used to be very stagnant. A very old, sanction from 1980 something. However, after Donald Trump, and he started talking to all of these communist people, he developed a relationship with Kim Jong-un and with Putin. And so you saw the sanctions completely fluctuate and change. So what used to be a very stagnant section of your work, you had to, delve a little bit deeper and pay a little bit more attention to it. And also that was one of our deficient recommendations. And so the regulators now, what they do is they send out different warnings, and you are to reply to the warnings. Like for instance, and I'm going to just show you what would have happened when we blacklisted Russia. They actually sent that we were waiting to see exactly what would happen. And they sent, okay, this is how it looks. So they would send you a letter through your email or the targeted financial institutions, and they give you a directive. And they say, after consultation with the government, the Bahamas, with due consideration in the interest of the jurisdiction and financial services sector, we hereby direct regulated entities and licensees are authorized to operate from it within the Bahamas, not to engage in transaction with sanctions persons, entities, or business linked to Russia and Belarus. Okay, and so they send you out this notice, and they say this is coming from all of the regulators. So no matter, if you were the gaming, if you were Island Luck, or you were the Royal Bank, this was all applicable to you. And this came out on a Sunday because we were waiting to see what the government's position was. So that Monday morning when we all got to work, we had to go and check our portfolios to make sure none of these, and this is a bit, can we see this? Can everybody see the screen?
No, that's good.
Okay, if some people could see it, then it's your computer. Okay, so this is from the Attorney General. He would have signed, and he said these are the individuals. And so what we had to do is we had to go through our portfolio and put all these names into our system to make sure that we did not have an account with them. Okay. And if we did, we wanted to, there's a form A1 and B1 that you fill in and you send to the regulator, whomever is your regulator, and you confirm to them that these people are not on your books. And if they are, then you say, yes, they are on our books. And then you wait until the regulator gives you further instructions on sending information. So there were 22 individuals, and then there were 99 companies. Okay, so could you imagine that's 120 something names? So that Monday morning when we got into work, we had to enter all these names into our system or add all these names in these companies to our blacklist. For companies that don't have Russian business, you had nothing to do because you say, oh, I get fill out my 2 forms and submit it because we don't have Russian, we don't do business with Russians. However, for those offshore banks that did have Russian clients, a lot of work, okay? And some of these people just had a Russian passport. They may have had a Russian passport and lived in the Bahamas for the last 20 years or lived in the US for the last year. So you would have had to check and then confirm to the regulator as well as the FIU that none of these companies or individuals were on your books. Okay, is that clear? Give me some feedback. Y'all sound like y'all sleep.
No, we are.
Y'all
Yes,
are?
yes.
Okay, and this is clear so far? Clear as mud?
Yes. Now,
Class, Crystal.
Okay, good, good. So again, terminology in the various countries so you don't get confused on the exam. When the exam asks you about your United Nations international obligations, and you all say United Nations international obligations, Ms. Polity, ain't it just for that? But that's another terminology they use for sanctions. So make sure you understand the terminology. And again, we know that Venezuela is heavily sanctioned, however, not sanctioned by us. So we have a very large Venezuelan book here in the Bahamas, okay? And so these are the countries that have, the Bahamas have sanctions against. And it just tells you the various, this falls under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and it tells you we have an arms embargo against Somalia, against Rwanda. We have a travel ban against Afghanistan, against Liberia, Sudan. We have a travel ban against Lebanon, but again, it says no individuals have yet to be designated by the committee. These sanctions cannot be imposed. However, they have it there, but we do. And I had a Lebanese client. Okay, so there's no confusion. They just need to move this completely. Okay, because I had a Lebanese client the other day that after those bombings in Lebanon had a lot of issues. Okay, so let's just take a look. Let's see if we can click on any of these. Let's click on Libya and let's see what sanctions look like. So it just tells you there's a ban on Libyan flights. No aircraft registered in Libya or owned or operated by Libyan national or companies shall be permitted to take off from land or overfly the Bahamas unless the flight has been approved in advance by the committee in case of emergency landing. Okay, and our very own Craig Flowers from Flowers used to be Gaddafi's chief pilot. So this was back in the 70s and 80s. So I'm wondering, let's see when this came out, because if he had not retired now, or these from 2011, by then I guess he was no longer the pilot. So that means that Craig Flowers couldn't fly home from Libya. He would have had to go on to Miami or another unsanctioned country because there's a no-fly zone from Libya. Not that I think there would be a direct flight from Libya in any event, but let's look at Cuba and the United States. A lot of persons still want to go. US citizens want to go to Cuba, or Canadians want to go to Cuba, and the US has Cuba sanctioned. As we can see, we don't have Cuba sanctioned. And so what do the Americans do? They fly to the Bahamas, and then they buy a ticket from Bahamas to Cuba. And so they are not discriminated against when they come back. What the Cuban officials do is they give you this inserted visa that they stamp. So there would be no stamp in your passport to say that you would have gone to Cuba. And so you just throw that away. But imagine if they had stamped the pages directly in the passport, then there would be some discrimination as you are a US citizen and you would have traveled to Cuba. So it just is a little bit more expensive. We are familiar with how US citizens still get into Cuba, correct? Okay, Miss Bullish falling to sleep too.
Yeah.
It's a holiday weekend. It's a
You
holiday
just
weekend.
said-
I ready to party.
No, I
Yeah,
ready to
if
go
y'all
sleep.
sleep, I gotta go. Y'all talk back to me.
No, they come through, they find another route.
Right, they find another
to get
route.
to get to Cuba.
And Flavia, why are they finding another route? Because Cuba is
It's sanctioned, so they
By the
don't have
US.
flights going into
right,
or coming out of.
right. But the Bahamas doesn't have them sanctioned, so they use us as a transit country.
And I'm mad at them because when they land here, we get fees.
There you go.
When they take off to go back home, we get more fees.
Fees, right, correct. That's how it works. Okay. So very popular questions again is categories for sanctions and targeted sanctions. So you understand the difference. And so the book goes on to talk about the categories, the 5 main categories for sanctions is counterterrorism. And
I have a question before we go on to that. How many of those do we actually need to, do we actually have to like learn all of them for the exam or just like 1 or 2?
But if normally 3 is my limit, right? But if the exam question only specifically asks you for the categories, you would need to know all 5 and then explain 3 of them. Give examples.
Okay.
Okay. So
I just wanted to make sure we didn't have to learn like Sierra Leone, Libya, all of those.
Oh, no. It'll probably ask you the categories, right?
Okay.
And so the categories are counterterrorism, and that went because of Libya, destruction of the Pan Am flight. And that's resolution 748 and resolution 883, the UN security resolution on destruction of the Pan Am flight in Libya. That's why they got that sanction. And then the next category is conflict resolution. An example is Iran resolution 2231. And then there is protection of civilians, and that's resolution 1265. And these examples, if you're gonna answer the sanction question, so I hope you're taking notes. Very easy question to answer on the exam.
Yeah.
Resolution 918 and Rwanda, protection of civilians. The example is Rwanda. Non-proliferation of weapons. There's a global treaty of 1970, and there's a non-proliferation on Iran. And then democratization, and there's resolution 940 on Haiti. Okay, so very easy question to answer. You put what counterterrorism is, and then you give an example of Libya and the Pan Am flight. Okay, very easy to answer. Okay, so when we do due diligence in our organizations and we open accounts, you know, your institution should have a sanction framework in place. A lot of persons or a lot of institutions use OFAC, and this is a sanctions list search. This is the US system, and it's, you know, you put in a name, and I put in Putin, and it tells you Vladimir Putin, the Kremlin, and Russia, and it, you would put this on your file as a part of your due diligence and say exactly why he is sanctioned and he is the president of the Russian Federation. Okay, and so you can put any name in here, and it should normally come up blank if you're going to open up the account. We put Perry Christie. Let's see. And you have to, it's important that you spell these names properly. And if any of you work in offshore, you have to be careful when you're world checking, and because sometimes world check has a sanctions site in it as well, and so you don't have to go to OFAC. But this same name, Dimitri, has given me a problem because there's a US spelling of Dimitri, and there's a English spelling, I'm not sorry, US, but a Russian spelling as well as a English spelling. And I word checked the person and OFAC them under the Russian spelling and nothing came up. Then I put it in under the English spelling, and I talking with this man had been to jail for money laundering, terrorist financing, all sorts of stuff, and he was trying to open an account in the Bahamas. Okay, so you want to make sure that when you're dealing with Russian clients, you understand that females and males, they take different pronouns. Your father's last name can be SH something. However, women names don't start with SH, so it's CH. So there's all sorts of crazy things. So if you have Russian clients, you want to make sure that you Google their Russian spelling and the English spelling. You want to check all of that just to ensure you don't miss anything when you are doing your due diligence. Okay, anybody working account opening and familiar with OFAC?
Ms. Bullitt, that's rather interesting because I thought you'd go by the exact spelling of the passport. So why the system wouldn't recognize the Russian spelling?
You do go by the exact name of the passport. However, these people have been all around the world. And so here is their Russian passport where they lived in Russia till they was about 15, right? And they keep renewing it. They never been back to Russia, but now they live in the US. So that Russian spelling, they only producing you one passport when they come to open up the account. So whichever one you get is what you check. Right?
Yes, ma'am.
So, yeah, so that's what happened with me, where I realized that the same name Dimitri, spelled this way, how it's spelled in Russian, you'll be very surprised. So that's why if you're dealing with any foreign name, Google their alphabet. If it's a Spanish name, a French name, a Russian name, Google their alphabet. You may find some different things because, like I said, in Russia, they give you the Russian spelling. When you come to the US, they spell your name in English. Right? So,
but you would think that these systems would be intelligent enough to pick that up.
It's man-made, sweetie. I wasn't even, and that's just it. Think about Ms. Bullitt creating that system and not knowing. I wasn't even intelligent enough. So the system can only give you what you put in, right?
Yes.
And I wasn't even aware until I had that issue. And then I wasn't even aware until I got an STR for the father. And then they said, send any other person related, if we had I forget the type of name, we had a SAC account where it was a company with 10, almost like how insurance sets up SACs. They had 10 customers under it. And so I said, well, these people are just investors. They're not related. And then I was just having a conversation and the lady said, well, Ms. Bullitt and Mr. So-and-so a father and daughter, and I said, how is she married? And she just said no. The pronoun is different from male versus female. I said, oh, I didn't know that. And I went back and I looked at it, and lo and behold, yes, that was father and daughter. One spelled SH, one spelled CH. And so then that's how I was able to say, well, oh, by the way, this is his daughter, report her to the FIU as well. And both of them got arrested because you could see where the transactions were going from one account to the next. So if you work in offshore, that would be important to know. But like I say, check it for any language.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good. Okay, so again, another popular question is, and the book tells you all about OFAC. OFAC acts as under presidential national emergency powers to impose controls. This is OFAC that we're looking at on the screen. OFAC sanctions programs specifically comprise counter narcotics trafficking sanctions, weapons non-proliferation sanctions, transnational criminal organizations, rough diamond trade controls. All of that will fall up, if under these various names based on what these persons were charged with. Okay, and you see all these aliases this person have. You see what's the person name? George, Gregory, Vasily, Dimitri. All of these is his aliases. Okay, so then you would have to check all these names. Okay, and all of this helps with making decision. Do we want to do business with this person? Are we going to open this account or not? Okay, so all U.S. persons must comply with OFAC regulations, including U.S. citizen and permanent residents, persons and entities within the U.S., foreign persons in possession of U.S. origin goods, foreign subsidiaries owned or controlled by U.S. companies. And then it says programs regarding Cuba. But again, the extraterritorial and you will see that in Cuba, U.S. is not accepted. They accept euros or pesos. Again, so that the U.S. wouldn't have that jurisdictional over them. Okay. Another popular question, before we go, another popular question is designing the sanctions framework. Again, this would be a body, a sanction framework. We use OFAC. We enter the names and it tells us whether or not they were charged. Then perhaps word check, a sanctions checker is embedded in there, and it will tell you if any sanctions are against those persons. If you work in the wiring department and you send offshore wires, you will see that there are a lot of financial institutions with penalties and breaches, because these banks are very large, and it says Standard Chartered Bank, Bank of Tokyo, Bank of Scotland. If you work in the offshore world, you'll see these HSBC, BNP Paribas. All of them are sanctions. They have various breaches and various fines, and it just comes up. And so unless they're completely off the SWIFT list, most of the time you just acknowledge that you see that they were charged before, and they're, like I said, billions of dollars of fines, and nothing is ever done, and we just bypass that. But you would, like I said, if you work in the offshore world and you see the SWIFT system, you will see that once the wire goes out, it'll tell you you're using Chase Bank. Chase Bank was filed or charged for this breach and that breach. And these are just copies of the various fines, and life just goes on. And life just went on with HSBC as well, as we saw in the movie Dirty Money, where, they had business with all those Mexican drug lords, and they were charged, what was it? The 17 billion, and everybody was outraged, but that was a little bit of money for them, right? In designing the sanctions framework, another popular question on the exam, it must comply with the obligations. You must have documented policies and procedures. You must define roles and responsibilities. You must raise awareness, communication, and training. You must monitor screening systems against the sanctions list. There must be an escalation process for decision making. Like we couldn't just wait until the government decided to block out Russia. We should have had our policy in place and said, when the government blocks out Russia, these are our next steps, okay? And it should have been documented. Requirements for reviewing sanctions related processes, okay? And all manual and automated sanction processes should be subject to quality assurance that investigations were completed in a timely manner, assurance that the quality of these investigations was sufficient, assurance that the audit trail is documented and sufficient, thorough and continuous integration of results. And again, with Russia, they're sanctioned now. If they decide to say, okay, we're going to throw in the towel and not going to be sanctioned, we don't want to be sanctioned, and so we will stop this war, you need to document the date. On May 12th, they were sanctioned. The sanctions were released on December 15th. If you don't document that date, when audit comes in and say, well, how did you do this transfer to Russia and they were sanctioned? You want to be able to prove that, you know, this when it came on and when it was lifted. So you want to have proper lists and proper screening and proper documentation. Okay? Is that clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, but y'all ain't talk to me back at all, Jamal. So y'all give me some feedback on sanctions. Tell me what y'all learned today. Just to make sure y'all wasn't to the fish fry, having a daiquiri whilst we was in class. Or you to the fish fry?
No, I sitting on my desk. I sitting on my desk.
Oh, okay, you the good. Okay, so tell me what you learned today, Jamal.
I learned, one of the things I learned is that the United Nations International Organization is another way to say sanctions. So that's something that we should be aware of.
No, you want to say it right.
What it is?
Say it right.
What did I say wrong?
Would you say it again? Say what you say.
United Nations International Organization. That's what I have on my notes.
Read the screen.
Hold on. United Obligations. Okay, hold on. See, I gotta make that correction.
Yeah. You write that on my desk. You write. I can put that right on the desk to make sure I'm wrong. Okay, good. So very good. All right. What else you learned?
About OFAC and how we have to be, if you work in the offshore bank, you have to be very careful when it comes to the spelling of names, especially when opening accounts. So always search for their name of the spelling of the name of the country where they're from, and if there's an English and a Russian version of the spelling.
Okay, good. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. You sound like you wanted to say something else.
No, that's fine.
Okay, Anita, tell me what you learned today.
Miss Fuller.
Yes.
I was thinking the same thing Jamal said. I remember that OFAC thing. That's what stood out to me today. When you put up that screen with the names.
Okay. All right. So you can check both spellings. Okay.
Yeah.
What about, give me one thing to check if you was designing a sanction framework, what would you put in it?
The categories.
Okay, and give me a category.
Say for instance, conflict resolution. I think the example you said was Iran resolution.
Okay.
And you talked about the counter-terrorism. Okay. And also what I remember was the resolution 9.18. And I think your reference was Rwanda.
Okay.
Rwanda.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. What about you, Demetria? What did you learn today? Demetria, in there?
I'm right here.
Okay, tell me what you learned today.
Basically, like the same thing what we was talking about just now. That's what really stood out the OFAC and with the international obligations, the sanctions and the categories.
Okay, make sure you know those categories and have some
Well,
examples.
it's 5 categories,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah, and make sure you have some examples. It's a very easy question to answer. Okay.
Right.
Very
Now,
good.
I'm gonna be honest with you, Miss Bullet. I know it's 5. I would say I missed the first one.
Okay, well, it's right there in the book.
Okay.
Yeah,
Not bad then.
read the book and you should get all 5.
And I know you said we have to make sure read up on CESRA or the CBC.
So you understand, yeah. And
Right.
if you could explain it in conversation, yes.
Yep.
Okay, okay, good, very good. Dominique?
Hi.
Hi.
Something that stood out to me was when you spoke about when George Bush was in power and there was a law in place, but I can't remember what you said it name.
The Dodd-Frank.
George, right, and then he replaced it.
Yeah.
So that was something that stood out to me. And that
Yeah.
was to strengthen their the requirements as it relates to terrorist financing.
There's an exam question now. What else they strengthen?
That was been you said that they have something that I have to go back.
Yeah, go back and tell me, because one of the questions asks you what is the name of the new law. So tell me what the name of the new law is and tell me what it strengthened.
He signed into law uniting and strengthening America by providing appropriate tools to intercept and obstruct terrorism act. That's in the Patriots Act.
Right. What is the objectives?
To enhance the US AML legislation, right?
Yeah, but it tells you what the objectives are right there.
I see it. Fighting foreign official corruption, policing the operations of multinational financial institutions, and limiting the activities of offshore banking centers.
Okay, good. Very good. Very good. Doniqua? Doniqua sleep? Okay, Doniqua sleep. Indira?
Well, you know, I'm sleeping.
Okay, good, good. Tell me what you learned today.
What was most interesting in this class today is the spelling. The spelling of those names, especially those Russian names. You have to pay particular attention to those, especially in the offshore world. I found that very interesting today.
Okay,
and how Americans use other methods to get to Cuba because it's a sanctioned country, and how they use the Bahamas to get there as a way to get there.
Okay, good, correct. Okay, Lene, Jonathan, Lene, you're supposed to talk to me this week because my daughter named Lene and I don't know you, so we got to get to know each other.
Hey, Miss Bullard.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
Okay, Lene, talking what you were supposed to tell me from last week.
Sure, I know, but I know what I can say this week.
Lene, you don't want no points. Okay, you don't want no points. Okay.
So, basically, I learned that nonprofit organizations and charities can also be used to help finance terrorist financing. I also learned that the US can basically prosecute depending on the jurisdiction of the funds or how they were used. Once a particular organization, no matter where it is located, I guess depending on how they receive the funds, they can be prosecuted. I also learned that you can prosecute persons depending on the affiliation with the terrorist groups. Again, referring back to the Patriot Act that George Bush would have initiated. Anything else you want me to say?
Okay, no, that's good. That's good. I just making sure you're on the right track.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Shanda? Okay, Shanda sleep. And then equal to the fish ride.
No, I was trying to get the thing unmoved. You know, these things, the MPOs stood out at me, like how you use the singing bishop, because God knows if he get 100K, he would send the next 50 the next week. So if somebody don't guide him, Jesus help us.
Yes.
Yeah,
And he'd be thanking God for it. He'll say it all over social media.
Yes, he would. Yes.
And we'd be like, all of us would be out there trying to bail him out of jail. Oh, Lord.
Yes, ma'am.
We know you didn't know. We know. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So again, so you have an example on why these things are important and the net effects of it, right? And then a lot of people was just crying shame on the F&M government saying, my God, Bishop just trying to feed the people. And look how they telling him they could charge him 10,000 a day, you know? And they just blame it on the government. That Hubert minutes have to go, you know? So just so you would know the real reason behind it and the international pressure, and the whole country could have been blacklisted if, you know, the pressure wasn't applied. So thank God, like I said, Paul Roll, a lawyer, volunteered to help, you know, anybody who was not familiar in getting themselves established in the time frame, so their accounts wouldn't close out, and so they could continue on with their charitable, I guess, causes.
Okay. With head notes, when they collected those funds, I think they spent some of the money, right? That's why they had that issue too, right?
No, with GoFundMe, so I don't know. I haven't followed it for the last year. So GoFundMe had it on hold, pending investigation. So they collected a separate set of money afterwards when Abaco and Freeport happened. But this was
they were collecting, I think, for Dorian, but
they collected separately for Dorian. They didn't use GoFundMe this time because as far as I know, GoFundMe has the money, the $1 million on hold.
But I think because of walking, that's why they holding it, right? Because I think
because of that money that they collected.
But I thought they spent it. I was like,
no. As far as I know, the last report I got was that GoFundMe had it on hold. Now, what they did spend in the controversy is over the Dorian money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So,
all right.
Yeah, but I don't know. Y'all read up on it just so y'all are aware. But they just have like bits and pieces of the story, you know?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay, and again, just examples so you understand like the net effects of what happens in our countries when these laws come out in place and why they are important. Okay? So you all find out the facts. You all don't go bashing the government and saying minutes this and that and grave this and that. Like I'm gonna put it like this. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, guys, the rain is down, but hopefully it'll only be for 30 minutes. So you'll have a fabulous.
Yeah, that ain't stopping no show, sweetie. I am very dressed. I can't write at least about
Basil was right.
You know, I was trying to get Basil talking.
Basil was right. Okay. Anyway, y'all be safe. Remember now, Corona is still out there. Y'all protect yourselves, but relax and unwind and have a good time, and then get 1 or 2 hours and studying, and y'all should be okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, guys, y'all have a good one. Enjoy the
Good
rest of
night.
the
Good
day.
afternoon.
All right, good afternoon.
Come, Ray, let's go.